What's going on, guys, and welcome to my Premier League team of the season. And look, before I get into it, a lot of my players are not the massive names that most people put in their teams, and I've done that purposely because it's easy to go that route with it and put players in that are just massive names. And I've got a few in there, but I've got a mixture. So there's going to be a few people be like in the comments, "Oh, how have you not got him or him?" And I'm just letting you know now, that's why I've not got them, because it's easy to do that. And I've gone with mine more on underrated players that have gone a little bit under the radar but have had solid seasons. So in goal, I've got Martinez of Aston Villa. Obviously, they got him from Arsenal. I saw him a little bit for Arsenal at times in the past, and I thought he looked quite good. And I think he's been phenomenal for Villa. Rarely has a bad game. One of their most consistent players. Pops up with vital saves for them to keep them in games. And I think he's a class goalie. I think he's one of the most underrated in the league. And I think he had a fantastic season for Villa. So Martinez would be my goalkeeper. At right back, I would go with Kufal at West Ham. Now, you could have the likes of Reece James at Chelsea. Maybe Aaron Wan-Bissaka for United, especially in defensive terms. But I've gone with Kufal. Goes under the radar a lot, doesn't get spoken about a lot, but West Ham have had a fantastic season this year, and he's a large part of that. Very solid, as I said. He's very consistent, makes very few mistakes, and he's just a solid player. So he would be my right back. Kufal for West Ham. The two centre-backs are both Man City centre-backs, and it is Stones and Diaz. I think Stones has definitely upped his form again. I know not too long ago he was going through a rough patch and there was doubts about him. And I think he's had a fantastic season, especially, and it bodes well for England going into these Euros. And he's definitely upped his game a lot. And I've been surprised by how well he's playing. So I've got to put him in this team this year. You could argue Harry Maguire deserves to be in there. For me, I think you have to put Stones and Diaz, and that's coming from a United supporter. But I'm not biased because of my United support. Maguire has definitely improved United, I think. I've been harsh on him at times this year. We probably missed him a bit in that Europa final the other night. I don't necessarily feel like we would have won if he did play, but I do think it would have helped. And I think he'll be vital for the Euros if he's fit. Obviously, he's injured at the moment. But I do think Stones and Diaz deserve to be ahead of him, simply because of how good City have been, largely down to them two at the centre-back pairing. So they are the centre-backs. Left-back is a United player, and it's Luke Shaw. I think he's one of the best left-backs in Europe right now, let alone just England and the Premier League in Europe and worldwide. I think he is playing that well. I never used to be that big of a fan of him. I don't really pay that much attention to him before, but this season, I think at the start of the season I didn't get all the hype, but he's won me over. And I think other than Chilwell, for left backs, I mean Robertson and Trent for Liverpool, the right and left backs. Like, that's why I didn't even discuss Trent for right back this year. Last year he would have been probably my right back easily, but I think he's had a pretty poor season. Like, he's definitely upped it in the last few months, but Liverpool have had a poor season by their standards. And for me, Trent and Robertson don't get into this lineup this year. But other than Chilwell, as I said, I don't think there's many. I like Target at Villa, but I think there's levels to it, and I don't think he's at the level of Shaw or Chilwell. Just trying to think off the top of my head right now. Like Zinchenko for City or Mendy, but for me, I think Chilwell and Shaw are the standout ones. And I think that Shaw deserves it. I think he's miles above everyone, to be honest, especially in the Premier League. As I said, in Europe right now, and he would be my starting left-back for England at the Euros as well, ahead of Chilwell. So Luke Shaw, one of our most consistent players at United. For me, other than Bruno this year for United, he's been our player of the year. So Luke Shaw is the left-back. And then I've gone with three midfielders. So on the right of the centre midfielders, I would have Mason Mount for Chelsea. I think I never used to be a fan of him. I never paid that much attention to him before, but I've watched him over the last few months and this season, and I think he's been Chelsea's, if not best player, like top 2 or 3 easily. Scored a vital penalty against Atletico Madrid, I think it was, in the Champions League, in a high pressure situation. And when he was stepping up to take it, I was like, oh, that's a lot of pressure, but he tucked it away like a veteran. And the last few games I've seen from him, in the FA Cup final, he had that one shot that could have got the equaliser. And Schmeichel tipped it around the post, but other than that, I thought he had a poor FA Cup final. And recently against City in the league, I thought he was poor as well. But other than that, on the majority of the season, I think he has definitely been one of their best players. So Mason Mount makes it in at right centre mid. Gundogan makes it in at left centre mid. He had a spell where De Bruyne was out and he was getting loads of goals, like every game. A bit like Ramsey did a few years back for Arsenal. I've always known about Gundogan, even in his Dortmund days for Klopp. And just to being at Dortmund, I knew about him, and I've always liked him, and I think he deserves to be in this team. De Bruyne does not, just a spoiler alert, De Bruyne does not make this team this year because he's been injured for different parts of the season. If he'd have been fully fit, he probably would have been in the team because of his quality, but for me, he misses out simply on the injuries. A lot of people putting him in their team, but I'm basing it off injuries and stuff as well, so he misses out. So my number 10 for my team would be Bruno Fernandez. I mean, the guy has come to United and he's changed the culture. Like, he single-handedly won us lots of games this year, dragged us through lots of games as well. It's a team game, but he has single-handedly won us a lot of games this year. Probably tailed off towards the second half of the season or the last quarter of the season. I think that's due to just playing so many minutes and never getting dropped and getting the rest that he needs. But he's a natural leader, obviously been captain since Maguire's out, and he is definitely, a lot of people would want him over Maguire as captain. I think it's harsh to not consider Luke Shaw in a captaincy talk as well, how he's been playing. But I would give Manchester United's player of the season to Fernandes over Shaw. It wouldn't be by a lot because I do think what Shaw does is very underrated. But Fernandes would be my player of the year for United alone. So he has to make this Premier League team of the year. His stats are out of this world. But I'm more of a person that bases it off of performance game per game rather than just looking at stats. But he's got both. And as I said, the last quarter of the season, maybe his performances haven't been up there as such, but he's still kind of putting the numbers up and usually one of the better players, even when he's not having his best game. So Bruno Fernandes, what he's done since he's come to United has just been out of this world. So Fernandes makes it in a number 10 role. Then the top three, Rafinha would be my right winger. I mean, people don't even consider these type of players because they're not a massive name and they're not a mass. Like, Leeds are a big club and they've done fantastically well since they've been promoted. And he makes his team for me. He's got the flair, he's got the work rate, he fits into the system at Leeds, he works hard. And as I said, on the ball, he's just a threat constantly. He's had a few little injuries here and there, but he has to make this team for me. And no one's put them in their team of the year because he's not a massive name. But I don't do my football off that. I do it off of what you've earned over the season. And that's why I don't fall for the likes of like Rashford and Sterling getting in just off their name. So Rafinha at Leeds would be my right winger. On the left, I would have Jack Grealish. Now, he's been out a long time with injury, but before he got injured, the guy's doing unbelievable things in their team, dragging, a bit like Bruno, dragging his team to results through his performances alone. Yes, it's a team game, but he's having decisive moments in the game that are deciding games for them. He would be my first name on the team sheet, or one of the top 2 or 3 on the team sheet for the Euros for me, if he's fit. Obviously, he's been out injured a lot, but he has to make this team. So Grealish would be my left winger. My striker, my number 9, it's going to shock people because people have got Son, Sterling, Rashford as their wingers, and then they've got Kane as a number 9. I get why they're doing that. They've got the stats there. Obviously, Kane got top scorer, but I'm not basing it off of that. Like, it's easy for you to put Kane in there. Bamford is my number 9. The guy is answering his critics. He finished, I think, I've got it here. He was joint 4th top scorer in the league with 17 goals, on par with Son, who also got 17. And the only ones that finished above Bamford were Bruno Fernandez at United, Salah and Harry Kane. And yet he's not even mentioned or considered for the Euro lineup. Southgate hasn't picked him. Everyone's lineups I've watched of like YouTubers, they've not had him in their squad, which shocks me and I don't get it. It's baffling to me. He's been phenomenal for Leeds. He's got great technique. He scores all different types of goals. He works hard off the ball. He's a clever player with his head. Do you know what I mean? I don't understand why more people aren't talking about him. And like, he's been at Palace in the past. I think Chelsea let him go. But do you know what I mean? He's backing it up now. And to do what he's done with a team that's just been newly promoted and being the top 4 top scorers in the league, being their talisman as well, that's a lot of pressure, and he answers it week in, week out for Leeds. And if it weren't for his performances as well on an individual basis, adding to that collective performance for Leeds over the year, they wouldn't finish where they finished this year. So Bamford would be my number 9. I have made subs as well. I'm going to go through these a little bit quicker. But Rice would be on the bench for me. Phenomenal for West Ham. He'd be one of my first names on the Euros list as well for starting in that first game against Croatia. Declan Rice, I'd love him at United. We're crying out for a defensive midfielder, and he would make that. I'd be happy with him at United. So he makes the bench. Son at Tottenham would make the bench. His assists and numbers this year has been just phenomenal. Him and Kane's partnership this year has been quality. Calvert-Lewin, I think he's died off a little bit for the last few months, but he had a fantastic start to the season in terms of having him in your fantasy league team, and he would definitely be probably the backup option for the England and the Euros. I would take him, Bamford and Kane as the strikers. So Calvert-Lewin would make the subs as well. Barnes at Leicester, who's been out injured for a long time as well, I think he's unlucky because he deserved a call-up for England, in my opinion, simply off the performances he was putting in for Leicester before he got injured. So Barnes would definitely be there for me. It's just unfortunate that he got the injury when he did, but he would be on the bench. I've also got Chilwell for Chelsea. As I said, he would be my backup left-back for sure if he got injured. And I think he's just moved on and he's pushed on since his move from Leicester, since going to Chelsea. So Chilwell. And then lastly, a little bit of a dark horse, Evans from Leicester, a vital centre-back for them, a vital part of their team and what they're doing at Leicester. Yes, he's not that young anymore, but who cares when you're performing like he's performing? Like, I would arguably take him back at United right now, how he's playing. He got injured in the FA Cup final, if I remember correctly. But this is what I mean. I've gone for a mixture of my Premier League team of the year because I'm sick of just seeing massive named players in there. It's easy to do that. I want to see more teams like this where you got players in that deserve to be in there on their performances, like Bamford, like Kufau. Do you know what I mean? Players like this need to be in there, like Rafinha. So Evans would make up my last spot on the bench. That is my Premier League team of the season, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. As I said, I've gone from a different angle with it than a lot of people would. But I wish more people would do their Premier League teams of the season like this and not just base it off of being a massive name in the game. Because I could easily put Rashford or Sterling in there. But Rashford's had a poor season by what I judge him on, and that's game-by-game performances. He was terrible in the final the other night. Probably the worst player on the pitch for me. But yet he gets all this slack and he gets backed up all the time for the stuff he's doing off the pitch. I don't care. Like, it's great what he's doing off the pitch, but I look at you first and foremost in your bread and butter at your job, and that is a sportsman. That's an athlete. It's a footballer. So you get judged on that before anything off the pitch for me. And he's not been doing it on the pitch for me. So he talks a good game, but it'd be easy to throw him in, and he'll probably start for Southgate at the Euros, but I don't agree with it. So, and then you could say the same for Sterling. I don't think he's been great at City this year. They've had a phenomenal year in terms of overall players, but I don't think he's been their best player by far. But yet people would have Sterling and Rashford as probably their two wingers for these Premier League team of the year. If not, Son would go in. But I'm not basing it off of that, as I said. I've gone for a mixture, and it'd just be refreshing to see more people do a lineup like mine in terms of not the same players, but players that go under the radar that maybe play for mid-table teams or teams like Leeds. Like you could have like the likes of like Dallas or Phillips from Leeds. Do you know what I mean? And just throw these players in there because they deserve it. So that's my team, Premier League team of the season, guys. And I'm going to be back for the Euros with more videos. Not sure what I'm going to do with that exactly yet, but watch out for the Euro videos. And yeah, but I mean to do this one for a few weeks now, so glad it's done, and I hope you enjoyed it. I'll speak to you guys soon.